I'm Tiara Bonds, founder of Take Charge Consulting, and an organizer with 1 Million Cups. Thank you all for joining us. And if you're here for the first time, we're grateful to have you and also grateful for our returners. We do this every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Zoom. So make sure to follow us on all social medias and sign up for our weekly updates. We have the link in the chat that will give you access to all of the links for 1MC in just one little neat place. And it has our Zoom link for every Wednesday and then replays so that you can watch previous presentations. So what is 1 Million Cups about? So we're about support, building our community, asking for help, offering help, and sharing ideas. We do this while drinking coffee or your beverage of choice. And what makes us different than other communities? I'm sure we've all been to numerous events to grow our business, but there's a clear difference when it comes to 1MC, and this is what I noticed right away. And one of those differentiators were just the elimination of the stale and robotic networking that, you walk up to someone and give them your business card, ask what each other does, and then on to the next person as you're kind of working the room per se. And I noticed that with 1MC, it wasn't about that. There were some people that I met and I didn't even know what they did until weeks later. So at 1MC, it's definitely about connecting more so than networking. And so this is our Seattle community. We have over 134 other communities with over 3,500 attendees and 700 volunteers. We all meet at 9 a.m. So if you wanted to experience a community in Florida or in, let's say, DC, where I'm currently at, you can find those meeting at 9 a.m. as well. So to sum it up, what 1MC is about, we focus on these three pillars, education, presentations, and connections. Let's see. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. All right, so a big thank you to our sponsors, the McLaughlin Method and Method Customization. We wouldn't be able to run these events without their support. These are community-led events, so our sponsors are very, very important, as well as our organizers. We bring our individual skills and our love for the community together to create and run these events every week. We're always looking for more community volunteers, so reach out to one of us. It's a great way to practice skills that you may use in your business. For me, that's hosting. I do host workshops and other events, so it's a great way for me to kind of get more in practice by supporting the community as well. And so feel free to email us, volunteer, a skill that you already have or something that you'd like to practice or learn and join as an organizer. You can just email us at seattle@1millioncups.com. And so what to expect today. After this, we're going to do a quick presentation from Amanda Stohl with Farmers Insurance, and then we'll do 20-minute Q&A and then more coffee and conversation with smaller breakout rooms. And so here are just some tips to being a supportive listener. What helps me is taking notes during the presentation about, what stands out, what do I want to learn more about, where can I share my expertise. I've got a little hint of Amanda's presentation, so I already know that I'm going to have a lot of questions. So writing those down just as she's presenting so that we can remember them for Q&A will allow us to focus and limit distractions that way. And so after her presentation, during the Q&A, you can use the raise hand feature under the reactions tab, and we'll call you one at a time. If you're not able to speak, or if you just prefer, you can also use the chat and we'll get to your questions that way as well. But with that, I will bring up our presenter to the stage. If you guys can help me just in the reactions tab using the virtual hand clap or physical hand claps, that would be awesome. And then I will stop sharing so that you can share, Amanda. So please help me welcome Amanda Stohl.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here this morning. So I've got something kind of prepared already. Let me get over here. And there we go. Okay, so as Tara said, I am a farmer's insurance agent, and I've been working in insurance for about a decade right now. So I love it. I'm not going anywhere. I love what I do. Business insurance can be kind of confusing for people because there's so many different parts to it. And you may need 1, 2, 3 parts of it, or you may need all of it. The big question is, how do you know what you need? Because in case something bad happens, the unexpected happens, how do you keep yourself in business? And what makes business insurance different than your auto insurance, your home insurance? So we can really kind of start to break it down into different pieces. The first part is general liability coverage. Are you a business that exchanges goods and services for money? If you do that, then you probably need general liability coverage, because whatever it is that you're doing, whatever space you have for your business, it could potentially be a risk that could lead to a lawsuit. So the next is professional liability. Now, professional liability is different in that what you do for your business, if you give professional advice to somebody, and that professional advice could lead to a huge loss for that person, they lose their house, they lose their business, whatever, that comes back on you because you gave them that advice. We're most familiar with professional liability under the terms malpractice or errors and omissions. So we've all heard about it before, but essentially if your advice could cause somebody harm, this is something that you're going to need. Employment practices liability, we kind of talked a little bit about it just in like hiring practices. It's important that you have written procedures for your hiring practices if you have employees. Do you have like a scorecard for resumes and applications? When you hire that person, if you're coaching them for improvement, do you have a standard format for that? Do you have a standard format for termination policies? What happens if you get sued? Do you have an attorney? Do you need insurance for that? Essentially, if you've got employees, it's a really good idea to have employment practices liability, because you never know what another human being is going to do or what they're going to try to hold you responsible for. Now, a lot of us work out of our homes, especially while we don't have to have open offices during the pandemic. But like myself, I still have an open office. So I have to take into consideration the building that I'm in. I'm renting it. So my responsibility is kind of limited on that. But people who own buildings that they're in and then they rent out extra spaces to other people, or they just own that building, that physical location opens up a lot of stuff for your insurance. So who else has interest in the building? Who else is renting in the building? Are there renovations? Did you make those renovations? Do you have big improvements that you've made into the space? These are all things that are important to take into consideration. Now, business property. So once you've got that business location, what's inside of it? Do you have computers? Do you have inventory, appliances? Do you have marketing materials? If everything were to be gone tomorrow, what physical property would you need to have replaced so that you can continue to do business? Commercial auto is very different than personal auto. And in case there's ever a loss, in case there's ever a claim or something that happens, if that bleeds over from personal to commercial in any way, that gets really messy on paying out a claim. So if you have a car that has like an advertising wrap around it, that is automatically considered a commercial vehicle. If you are delivering things for your business, commercial vehicle. If you are driving for work trips on a daily basis, that's a commercial vehicle, even if it's your personal vehicle that you do other stuff in. So it's very important to keep that separate, because nobody wants to have a claim that's denied. Data security is becoming more and more important. In the data security world, it's not an issue of if your customer's information is going to be compromised. It's a matter of when. If you do anything having to do with names, phone numbers, email addresses, physical addresses, payment information, that's all soft spots that could lead to an issue where people's information could get stolen. If you have it on a computer, a cell phone, anything. And you do need to have a formal policy in place to take care of that. And in case you don't want to make all those phone calls to your clients to let them know that their information was compromised, you should probably have this data security policy coverage. So workers' compensation, you don't need a policy for it in Washington State. Washington State is one of the few states that is considered a monopolistic state. So your workers' compensation is L&I. You don't have to buy a separate policy for it. That can cause an issue when you're doing business in multiple states. So when you're doing business with somebody in another state, they're going to want to have a certificate of insurance showing your general liability, auto, all of your stuff, and your workers' compensation. That gets a little tricksy to explain to another state that Washington is monopolistic. So if you have questions about paperwork on that, I'm happy to help. All right. What really makes a policy perfect for you is the endorsements. A lot of the stuff that we've already covered, it's just packaged up with certain things that are included, but the endorsements can make it right for you. So if you're a restaurant, having food spoilage coverage, if you are a manufacturing business like a pottery studio, having equipment breakdown could be super important. And I cannot express how important it is to have water and sewer backup. Water damage is a huge issue, and almost across the board, water damage is just excluded on everything unless you add the coverage back in. So when you are considering what you need for your business insurance, important things to check are your lease agreement. There are some crazy rules that are written in lease agreements. I have seen things where people are responsible for replacing the entire building that they're renting if their office burns down, or their landlord wants them to increase their limits year over year. So 1 million one year, 2 million the next year. You gotta read your lease agreement and know what's in there. Also, your co-insurance amounts are very important. Co-insurance could be like 80%, 70%, 90%. What that means in a reality is when you have a loss and they're looking at paying out, they're going to pay 80% of the total loss, or 90, whatever, because you have a co-insurance on the side. So that's your financial responsibility. And then your deductibles, and also, of course, exclusions. We've all heard stories about how, oh God, this wasn't covered. So talk with your agent, check your exclusions. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to help.
Woo! Thank you, Amanda.
You're very welcome.
So we can open it up for Q&A. Again, just use the reactions tab and the hand raise, and we can get all of our insurance questions answered by the amazing Amanda. And I will start with you, Dan.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. And I know there's a lot of things. I think one of my important takeaways from that is I think what I already knew is that it can get a lot more complicated than you think if you're not in the business. But I had a couple of things. Was wondering, and I've gone through kind of a tiered risk assessment as part of kind of our business strategic planning in the past. It was at the board level, but during that assessment, we brought in our insurance agent to kind of go through a few things. Is that something where, as far as where you fit in, or where you would suggest, is it like you go through a risk assessment as a business and then you're providing that information to you, or you get involved in that process? And also kind of to take that one step further, part of my personal kind of financial planning and risk assessment resulted in me having the person that handles that for me saying, hey, as a business owner, you need to have umbrella insurance personally to kind of cover things. And they kind of coordinated with our corporate insurance agent to kind of figure that all out. And I think that dynamic is that I'm still having actually gone through the process, I'm still not sure exactly, where people jump in and where people fit in, and where you would fit into that process, I guess.
So as an agent, I like to be as involved as people want me to be. So if they want me to physically come to their business and look at everything, that is honestly the ideal situation, because I have an eye for what the underwriters are looking for, and I know what questions to ask for more information. But just as a starting point, I always ask people, what keeps you up at night? When you're thinking about your business, what worries you? So we can start there and then expand from there. I am happy to coordinate with people and combine their their personal and their business together, so that way everything can be integrated properly. I'm happy to work with other agents to make sure that all of that's taken care of. So it's really up to the client how much service they want to have. And then it looks like we've got 3 participants raising their hand. Did I answer your questions first? Did that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like you have some flexibility as far as where you interface with everything. So that's great, because I think sometimes having experts that can jump in and be part of the process, that's served me pretty well in the past.
I prefer to be more involved if people will let me.
I totally understand that, especially with credit. It's kind of personal, just like insurance, and I'm as involved as my clients want me to be. So I totally understand that. My question was about the data security with names. And again, I do credit, so it's social security numbers, addresses, and my CRM has, security and privacy features on it, but how do I know if that's enough?
That's a really good question, and it's actually a very complicated question in regards to data security. It depends on what is being utilized. If it is a software system, a lot of people just have software systems to handle their data security, and I think that that's enough. Oftentimes, it's very good to have a data security officer to do a risk assessment for your soft spots, because people are the biggest thing that leads to data leaks. Downloading things without permission, giving out information over the phone, right? So having a review of policies and procedures in place to make sure that people are very mindful of those things is important. And then, when it comes to the insurance policy itself, in case that information goes out, we have people who will call your clients and let them know, who will send out those emails and take care of it. So that way, the cleanup process is a lot easier for you. But as far as the data security services itself, call a professional. Make sure that they're not just selling you software.
Yeah, that's what I've seen tons of that too. So good. Data security officer. Thank you. Andrea Porter. Hi.
Hi. It's very opportune timing. I am a program manager with a nonprofit called Seattle Made, and we are working with the City of Seattle Office of Economic Development to activate empty storefronts in Pioneer Square and downtown. And so we will be having artists and makers and manufacturers work with landlords to activate these empty spaces. And I'm curious, I know obviously they'll need insurance, and I'm just wondering, these are essentially pop-ups that are going to last anywhere from 2 to 4 months. And is it possible to get that short term of insurance? And probably it's a deeper conversation, but I just want to get your initial thoughts on how we will go about that. And we have some contacts already, but the more information I gather on this idea and concept, the better. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. So most commercial policies, I would say probably 99.999% of them are sold on an annual basis. But with that being said, you can start a policy at any time and cancel a policy at any time. and financing is available. So if you have an artist who's like, I only need it for 2 or 3 months, okay, get your financing and then just cancel when you're done. It's not that big of a deal. As far as the underwriting, I need to know what they're doing. Any agent needs to know what they're doing, because a person who is painting canvases is going to have a significantly less risk than like somebody who's welding. And then somebody who is working with spray paints, is there good ventilation, or like, do they have good policies to make sure that the, it's important to take all the factors into consideration with what people are doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like once we dive into it, it might be the situation where you could help each individual person that needs a lease, insurance for that lease, navigate what they need to do and what's the best resource.
Right. And that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to insure it as a collective.
Okay.
So if you can get your artist to organize a collective, we can insure that instead, as opposed to each individual person. So if you have it as like a membership basis where they membership into the collective, then that would honestly make it much cleaner.
Okay. That probably will work for us since we're a nonprofit with this program. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Amazing stuff that you're doing, Andrea. Thank you. Katie.
Hi. So one of the things that I have a question about, and this is just going back to all the basics, like once you have business insurance, I did a business insurance, probably one of the kinds of insurance that we're probably all the least familiar with, whereas many of us have had health insurance like our whole lives, right? And so we're like, we know how to use the system. We understand like when you can file a claim and, all of that jazz. And so I guess with business insurance, I'm assuming that business insurance is just kind of the thing that hangs out in the background until you end up needing it. Right. And then like, when you end up needing it, like, how do you, what is the kind of the process for actually like dealing with the challenge? Like, is it, so I guess, I don't know if that's enough of a question, but I hope that you kind of understand that, like sharing a little bit about like, how do we actually even use business insurance once we have it?
Great. So the first step is take pictures. Take pictures of what happens, and then call your agent. So your agent can help coordinate from there. Your agent's responsibility is basically to be your base of knowledge, the grease that makes the wheels turn, and then, just your assistant to make sure everything moves forward. So we are not adjusters. Adjusters handle claims. So we can help give you information about making sure you have the right policy. We can help you contact your adjuster. We can, if they're not responsive, we can help them, get back in touch with you. We can even discuss a little bit as far as like, confirming, yes, this coverage is on your policy here, this. But ultimately, when it comes to a decision for a payout, that is all the adjuster's responsibility, and we have no say about what happens on that. I have gone to bat for people before and said, the rules and the policy say this, so I want this to be reviewed. And I have actually fixed a couple of things that way, which is great. But for the most part, take pictures, get a hold of the adjusters. That's straight line there.
Cool. Thank you. Sarah, good morning.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I've been having some audio problems. So I had a question about general liability insurance. Would that cover a situation where you're in your business making products and one of your customers has some kind of negative effect from using your product, or would you have to get some kind of specific additional coverage for that?
That's a really good question, and it depends on what's being manufactured. So if you are a seamstress and you make clothes and it falls apart on somebody at the worst possible moment, yeah, that's something that would be covered. If you manufacture pottery, I throw pottery, so it's in my brain, and like something breaks and somebody gets injured because of it, yes. If it has something to do with a higher risk manufacturing thing like aircraft, that's a big old fat question with lots of implications, and I wouldn't answer that question without an adjuster on the line.
Okay.
Nice. And then we have a question from Yulia. Hi, Yulia.
Hi, good morning. So, Amanda, I have a question around like business insurance premiums. And so let's say a business has insurance and has had insurance before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, the volume of the business has significantly gone down. Now, how do we measure that the risk of the new business has changed, and how do we change the business premium? So if, let's say, the volume of the business has gone down by, like, I don't know, sometimes maybe 80%, 70%. I mean, the risk has changed as well. So how do we modify? How will the new business premium look like? What are some of the ways that the insurance company can do that?
Request an audit. Many companies do an audit at the end of every year to keep up with changes in the business. We're most familiar with the concept of when a business is growing and they need to be rated for a larger scale business. But during the pandemic, we did see businesses recede back. One of the factors in determining your premium for a general liability policy is your revenue. So if your revenue decreases from $200,000 to $50,000, that is something to take into consideration. And revenue is in tiering. So you can always talk to your agent and just say, hey, like, what are your revenue tiers? So something from like 18,000 to 50,000 is one tier, 50,000 to 250,000 is another tier. Like, and every company has different underwriting characteristics for those tiers. So you can just check on it and just say, hey, this is my revenue now. This is how much I'm paying me. This is how much I'm paying my employees. My employee number went down from this to this, and see if there's anything that they can do to adjust that.
Is there anything really specific or different about selling alcohol in Washington state? So think a bar and insure. Is that something that there are some very specific rules around that?
Yes.
Okay.
Talk to your agent.
Okay.
Yes.
So no matter what your volume is, there is something also about selling alcohol.
Yes. Yes, that is one of those exposures that the scope of the business that you're doing, categorization of the business that you're doing are very important things, because the alcohol or liquor usage for like a restaurant that sells pho and has, occasional beer and wine sales, that's maybe 2% of their revenue every year, is very different than a bar where their food sales is 2% of the revenue every year, and the rest of it is alcohol, because alcohol statistically does make people make stupid decisions. And if you're going to insure that, then we know about it.
Okay, but an audit would be helpful as well, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Yulia. Thanks, Amanda. And then we'll do one more question. Dan.
Follow-up question I just thought of as first. I know that I think that it's called life term care. It's required by Washington state for employees. I know that employers, basically there's an amount that you're taking from the employee's check to go to this new program, and you can opt out of that. My personal insurance agent set me up with life term care so that I could have my own that's not the state sponsored one. And it made me think about the responsibility to employees and such is, do you have experience with employers like making those arrangements for, or providing options for life term care for employees? Or assessing their personal insurance, as part of the corporate review of insurance policies, or do you try to keep those separate? Is there some liability that you're taking on by even suggesting information about, their personal insurance?
So a lot of this is a moot point now.
Okay.
So a little bit of history about what happened this year with long-term care. Washington State did pass that law. And then in March, everybody just kind of freaked out because the information regarding the law, how much money was going to be taken out of checks, like what the rules were very vague. They hadn't all been released yet. And then by July, all of the long-term carriers in Washington started to pull out. And by August, nobody was selling long-term care anymore. So the only options that were available at that point were just the state options. And the reason for that is because in 2-3 months, long-term care providers in Washington State received an equivalent number of applications as they would in 3 years for the entire country. It was overwhelming. They can't rate for the risks on that. It was just a lot. So they will come back eventually, but for right now, your options are the state and the state and the state. Now, it is going to be 55 cents for every $100 that is pulled out of people's paychecks to fund this. It does give a maximum benefit of $30,000 for each individual. If somebody moves out of the state, they then no longer get to take that fund with them at all. It's just a wash. It's in the state funds. That's it. So really for people who are making $70,000, $80,000 a year or less, the state fund is not a bad option. But if you're making more than that, then when the long-term care providers come back, talk to your agent, get a policy. It's going to be better for you. You can buy a long-term care policy on its own. You can also look at having a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider. You'll definitely want to talk to your agent about the underwriting stuff because there are certain policies that qualify for state exemption and some that don't. So you want to make sure that you're being very clear on that. Did I answer your questions on that?
Yes, thank you. I feel fortunate now that I took advantage of this early when that I could still get it, I guess. So thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. And then Jay, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. First of all, I love this presentation because I think people often either like they're so scared of like this topic of like it's complex. I don't even know what questions to ask, or like, oh, I have worked with my own personal insurance before, and it's probably similar. So like you get kind of a range of things. On that note, like at the library, like we often get questions about like how do I kind of compare one carrier over another, and, in various things when that applies to like lawyers, accountants, but in insurance particularly. We do have some resources like Bests and some of these other resources, but they don't actually compare what the person is asking. They compare like the financial health of the insurance company or things like this. But like, do you have any like resources for like if I'm like smart shopper resources? If I'm a small business and I'm trying to figure out like which insurance company is going to like do what I want them to do and what's the best fit for me, what tools can I help them with?
Absolutely. So your options are to self-educate or to have an agent to navigate the process for you. Those are really the two ways to go about it. A lot of base policies are just package policies. So when you look at like a general liability policy, it has an aggregate limit, it has an occurrence limit, it has medical, it has damage to a premises that you rent, and like just a couple of other things that are packaged in there. What makes one company different than another is what do they offer beyond that? Do they offer any coverage for like your active employees? Do they offer any coverage for your paperwork? Do they offer any coverage for your signage? A business general liability is usually pretty similar, but those little extras in the policy are very important. I will always recommend that somebody gets a business owner's policy as opposed to a general liability policy, because a business owner's policy has all kinds of little things that are just stacked in there to cover holes that a lot of people don't even think about. So like, you know, if you've got somebody who's an accountant and they say, I need a general liability policy to do business, they're probably not thinking about their computers, their paperwork, the acts of their employees, the signage that they have outside, if they're responsible for what happens in the parking lot, if they're responsible for what happens to the wiring in the building. Like, there's tons of stuff. And a business owner's policy usually just covers a lot of those things without even asking. So yeah, like I said, people can, you know, they can learn it themselves. And if you spend 4 or 5 days on Google, you're going to learn a lot of information. Or you can just talk to an agent. So like, I'm a commercial insurance broker and I'm appointed with 24 different companies. So if I know what somebody's risk factors are, if I know what they're looking for and they're hoping to accomplish with their insurance, then I can do the comparison for them. And I can tell them this policy has this and this and this, but it has this big hole that you need here. And then this policy may or may not be more expensive, but it fills all of your holes.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I love the Google explanation, because it's like with a lot of our services, we can learn it, but if you just want to, I prefer always just going straight to an expert, unless you do have the time and energy too. So that's why you will be getting a lot of my questions, Amanda.
Happy to help.
Awesome. So at 1 Million Cups, we always like to ask the big question, and it's, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? So I wanted to ask you that, Amanda, and then also for everyone else that's here, this is something we typically ask our entrepreneurs who are starting something new or in a transition, and you may be doing that yourself too, Amanda, but I wanted to also open it up to everyone else. And it could just be a simple event that you have coming up that you would like us to share or put our eyes on. So as Amanda is answering that question, also just think about you yourself. What can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? So Amanda, I'll start with you.
Awesome. Having business contacts and people to connect with about how they operate their businesses and best practices is important. I'm really good at some things. I'm not so great at other things. It all comes down to specialization. So being able to talk to people who specialize in other areas is very important. And then, of course, I'm a business person. I'm looking to build my business. So if anybody has referrals or they want to talk to me and start a policy with me, of course, I'm going to help you out with that. Hopefully it'll be mutually beneficial, right? That's what we're all here for. And then I am starting my 2022 fiscal year. So the more business insurance that I have to start out, great. The more life insurance that I have to start out, great. It just sets my business up for success for the rest of the year.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. And if anyone else wants to answer this question, we can use the hand raise feature again, or like I said, just post in the chat, and then yeah, we'll go from there. And then I will kind of wrap back around to that question again. But also, if your business is new or in a transition, like I said, and you're willing to ask for help, learn, then we would love to hear from you. You can apply at 1millioncups.com/Seattle. And then as well as getting involved with organizers. So we're always looking for more community organizers. If you're looking for a way to kind of give back to the community, this is a great opportunity. And personally, that's why I volunteered as an organizer. And you can do so by emailing us at seattle@1millioncups.com. And then don't forget to bookmark the link tree. Again, it has all of the links for 1 Million Cups. And so November 17th, we have Johnny with Cope Notes. They use daily text messages that combine peer support and positive psychology to improve mental and emotional health for individuals, families, groups, and communities worldwide. And next week, we have an opening for you. This is a perfect opportunity to present a new business idea, a new business in general, or a new transition in your current business and get feedback from our amazing community. I presented a new offering here a few months ago and got the most valuable feedback. So I always encourage it. And so we have the next week, November 10th available. I will personally be on the lookout for your application, but even if you can't present next week, just still go ahead and apply and we'll get you on this scheduled. And if presenting isn't right for you, just share this with someone else. Like I said, I've got the most valuable feedback from 1 Million Cups. And so we want to make sure that others are able to do that too. So it looks like Sarah has something back to our favorite question, what can 1 Million Cups do from you? So I will let you go ahead and share.
Thanks. Oh, yeah, so 2 things, I've just put it in the chat. We are currently sending out free sample boxes of our products to hand therapists and physiotherapists and anyone who does joint support for hands and wrists. So if you know anyone in that space, let them know and they can come to our website and order it. And then the other thing is I'm in collaboration with a big arthritis influencer called Arthritis Life. We're jointly organising a really big event in spring 22. And we're looking for anyone in the arthritis world, but specifically people who make products for people with arthritis. So anything that might make someone's life easier if they've got arthritis. And also people like nutritionists and exercise experts. But anyone who can help people with arthritis, we're looking for speakers for our events and also for people to do product demos.
Nice. Nice. And I do see that in the chat with your email. Perfect. Let's see. Yulia, simply connect with other entrepreneurs, like-minded people, and support each other, share best business practices, etc. Yeah, so if we want to put our LinkedIns in the chat, that would be awesome. And I have something that I would like to be shared. I am partnering with Habitat for Humanity, and we're putting on a free workshop. So one of the things that I noticed with credit is coaches always talk about, a target audience, an ideal customer. And I've got that dialed in, but then there's still a group that I would love to be able to help, but money may be a barrier. And so this partnership will allow me to kind of reach those people so that they can get the education and knowledge for free. So just sharing that, I think, would be super helpful for me because we never know who needs it. And sometimes people don't reach out because of money. So this is an opportunity for people to reach their credit goals without money being the issue. So thank you. And then we've got LinkedIn's here. Perfect. And then I knew Jay had something. Jay has tons of always beneficial events. So there's his calendar there. And then we've got Andrea's Seattle Made. Cool.
Hey, isn't there an upcoming business resource open house thingy?
January.
January.
We were going to do it in December, but then we realized people are probably going to be busy in December. And we also heard from our Amharic and Somali communities that if we did that on a weekend, that more of their communities would come. So we were like, okay, well, let's do that. And we felt like that that would be more of a better fit in January. But yeah, we're working towards that. I think Angela Castaneda is working on kind of a more like celebratory event, just sort of informal, like meetup kind of a thing. So I'll touch base on the dates on that one too. That's still coming together for December.
Awesome. And I know Shannon is in funding stages. Sorry to call you out. So if you have any pitch events coming up or anything, we would love to support that.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, nothing upcoming. I'm just sending out emails to VCs and just reaching out directly.
Nice. Well, congrats to you on that. And then I think we're ready for breakout rooms, Katie. We're going to do it a little bit differently. So I'll let you go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, so we are always experimenting here at 1 Million Cups. And so the thing we're going to do today is I'm opening up breakout rooms that you can choose which one you want to join. So depending on kind of what you're interested in talking about, I'm opening up rooms, and this is my first time ever doing this. So if crazy things happen, I apologize. But you should have the opportunity to select your breakout room now at the bottom. One is chat with the presenter. So Amanda, if you'll choose that one, that way if people have questions, they can connect with you after the fact. You can also just do general connecting. You can chat with an organizer, or if you really need support, right? Like you've got a thing you want to talk through and could use like a brainstorm, go to the get support breakout room. So enjoy, and we'll see you later.
Nice. I like this format already.
So yeah, you just select it down in the row. You should see breakout rooms. And if anyone needs help, I can certainly assign you to a breakout room if you're having any trouble with your connection.
Yeah, I'm not seeing breakout rooms here.
Oh, okay. Do you have a preference on what kind of breakout room you'd like to go to?
I don't even know what the options are, sorry.
Okay, so you chat with a presenter, chat with an organizer, general connecting, or get support.
General, sounds good,
Okay.
thank you.
Cool, no problem.
Yeah, I cannot see them either. I'm sorry. So
That's okay.
yeah.
Do you know which one you'd like
general
to
connecting.
Okay.
General connecting, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.